What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to continue with Grudge match, volume number 20. Now we're looking at a WBC welterweight championship bout that took place November 30th, 1979 in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was scheduled for 15 rounds against 1976 gold medalist Sugar Ray Leonard and the WBC welterweight champion WILFRED BENITEZ. Now, WILFRED BENITEZ would be the youngest champion in history when he captured the title in 1976 from Antonio Cervantes. He was a fascinating fighter himself. But I want to go through that fight, and I want to get into it with you right here on the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Now, WILFRED BENITEZ, they call the Bible of Boxing. He was a master of defense. He was boxing's Hall of Fame nominee, and he was elected in 1993. And he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1996. Now, he would be born September 12, 1958 in Bronx, New York. He stood 5 foot 10 inches and weighed 139.5 to 160 pounds. He was managed by Bill Caton, and he was trained by his father, Grudge BENITEZ. Now, BENITEZ, his dad, had a comment in an article that I have, and he stated that he wouldn't accept $200,000 to be in BENITEZ's corner because he was very upset with him. He was very lackluster in early of his career. BENITEZ would win the WBC welterweight, WBC junior middleweight, and the WBC junior welterweight championship. He would be the youngest fighter in boxing history to earn his first title. He would fight such great fighters as Roberto Duran, Carlos Palomino, Antonio Cervantes, Maurice Hope, Randy Shields, Paul Whitaker, Bruce Curry, Pete Ramsey. What a list. He would be ranked by the WBA and the WBC at the age of 16. Fascinating. He would turn professional at the age of 15. Now, in 1976, he would become a force to be reckoned with. He would face Antonio Cervantes, San Juan, Puerto Rico, for the WBA Junior Welterweight Championship, and he would defeat him in 15 rounds. Now, to give you a background of Antonio Cervantes, he turned professional January 31st, 1964. Amazing. Just think about that for one moment. He would be 30 years of age when he faced a 17-year-old kid and Antonio Cervantes and WILFRED BENITEZ. Now, Cervantes would fight December 11th, 1971 against a fighter by the name of Nicolino Losche. He was one of the greatest defensive fighters in the entire history of the game. He was from Argentina, and this fight took place in Buenos Aires, Argentina. It was for the WBA light welterweight championship. Cervantes would come up short, but he would continue. 1972, October 28th, he would face Alfonso Peppermint Frazier, Panama City, Panama. He would defeat him in 10 rounds, and he would win WBA Junior Welterweight Championship. 1975, May 17th, he would face Estefan de Jesus. Estefan de Jesus would give Roberto Duran all he can handle. And he would defeat Estefan de Jesus in Panama City, Panama in 15 rounds to defend the WBA championship. 1976, he would run into problems with a young 17-year-old named WILFRED BENITEZ. This fight took place March 6, 1976 in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And he would lose to WILFRED BENITEZ in 15 rounds for the WBA Junior Welterweight Championship. Now, some say it was home cooking. I saw the fight. It was not home cooking. WILFRED BENITEZ was that good. And he was only 17 years old at the time. In 1976, Antonio Cervantes would face Saul Mamby. This would be November 13th, 76. And would defeat him in 10 rounds. 1980, August 2nd. He would lose the WBA Junior Welterweight strap that he picked up again when WILFRED BENITEZ released it because he went up to challenge for the Welterweight Championship belt. And Antonio Cervantes would lose his title August 2nd, 1980 to Aaron the Hawk Pryor. He would be knocked out in the 4th round. He would continue and he would earn some kind of a title, WBC, in 1983. But he went on to fight too long as well. He started in 1964. So Antonio Cervantes, they called him Kid Pambale. He was a fascinating fighter. Sugar Ray Leonard, born May 7th, 1956, Wilmington, North Carolina. He would move to Palmer Park, Maryland. He would stand 5 foot 10 inches and weigh 141 to 168 pounds. He would have a 71-inch reach. He would be managed by Mike Trainer, and his trainer would be Angelo Dundee and Pepper Correa. Pepe Correa was a very good trainer as well. He'd be handled by Dave Jacob and Hank Morton. Now, Ray Leonard had a professional career of 36, 3, 1, with 25 knockouts. He would lose to the following fighters: Roberto Duran in Montreal, 1980. Terrible Terry Norris, 1991. And Macho, what time is it, Camacho? This would be Sugar Ray Leonard's last fight. He stayed in far too long, and he was inactive too many times. R.I.P. to Macho Camacho. Now I was at this fight in Atlantic City, and they gave Ray Leonard a farewell goodbye because he announced his retirement. And I was also at Terrible Terry Norris in Madison Square Garden when he announced his retirement. Now in 1981, he would face Thomas the Hitman Hearns. In 1989, he would have a rematch with Thomas the Hitman Hearns. In 1985, he would face Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Marvin Hagler would retire after this match. He would face Donnie, the Golden Boy, Lalani. for the Light Heavyweight Championship, WBC. And the WBC Super Middleweight Championship was on the line as well. But Donnie Golden Boy Lalonde would take his championship from Leslie Stewart. I knew him personally. He was from Trinidad. He used to train in Gleason's gym. Now Leonard would win the NABF version of the welterweight championship from Pete Ramsey. And he would knock out Davey Boy Green with one of the most vicious combinations that I've ever seen in the welterweight division outside of Sugar Ray Robinson. Fascinating fighter with Sugar Ray Leonard. But then he would meet Wilfredo Gomez, November 30th, 1979 in Las Vegas, Nevada. And this would be some fight. Because you see, Sugar Ray Leonard had won the 1976 gold medal in the Montreal Games. And he would become the Golden Boy. He got all special treatments. And this was a problem for a lot of fighters. Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Thomas the Hitman Hearns. And Wilfred Benitez had a problem with it because that same year, 1976, at 17, he would be the youngest to win the Junior Welterweight Championship bout against Antonio Kid Pambale Cervantes. And he was a world champion at 17. And Ray Leonard was getting all the treatment. He was a Golden Boy. Wilfred Benitez had a problem with that. So he would attend his fights. And at the end of Sugar Ray Leonard's fights, he would wave his hand, where did he get in there with me? And it was becoming to a point where it had to happen. And Ray Leonard wanted the welterweight strap. So on the night of November 30th, 1979, he would get that chance to face Wilfredo Benitez. But then there was another problem, because Marvelous Marvin Hagler will be getting his championship opportunity against Vito Antuofermo the same night. And it seemed like with all the fighters, Sugar Ray Leonard always tried, according to them, to oversign them. But on this night in Las Vegas, Sugar Ray Leonard and Wilfred Benitez would come out of their dressing rooms and it would be electric in the air. And when they got into the ring, the bell rang. And I'll tell you, we had a referee, Carlos Padilla, who was the same referee as the great fight in 1981 with Salvador Sanchez and Wilfredo Gomez. Same fighter, great fight 1975 in Manila, Muhammad Ali and Smoking Joe Frazier. Carlos Padilla was getting the shine. And the judges that night was Art Curry, Harry Gibbs, and Ray Solis. So you had professionals at that arena. And when the bell rang, Ray Leonard and Wilfred Benitez met right in the middle. Ray Leonard stood flat-footed. And it reminded me of Sugar Ray Robinson and Charlie Fusari in Newark, New Jersey. Because as Sugar Ray Robinson, Ray Leonard would stand right there in the pocket in a tight circle, and he would jab up and down, and he would move completely around his opponent, in this case Benitez, and he would jab up and down, and he would move his head side to side, but he wouldn't move out of the pocket. And Benitez, who was a master of defense, wanted to trade with Ray Leonard because he wanted to show his defensive skills. So Ray Leonard knew he had him at that point. So what Ray Leonard would do was he would inch back a little bit of time in that circle. Benitez didn't realize that he was getting closer to the ropes. And Ray Leonard would open up massive combinations on him, turn to the side on him. And it got to a point when they collided heads. And from that point, Wilfred Benitez would not be the same. Wilfred Benitez wasn't thinking anymore. He wasn't performing as a champion. He played right into the hands of Sugar Ray Leonard. You see, Sugar Ray Leonard was a mind boxer. He focused on your mind, and he would act accordingly. Because to every action is a reaction. That was his philosophy. And Wilfred Benitez was lick his own blood and became machismo, not a thinker. And in the 15th round, he would make a false move and get caught with an uppercut, left hook. And he would go down. And Carlos Padilla would call the fight. And Sugar Ray Leonard would become the brand new WBC welterweight champion of the world. And Wilfred Benitez would never like Sugar Ray Leonard. He would fight his opponents. He would face Roberto Duran. He would face Thomas Hearns. He would face Marvelous Marvin Hagler. But he moved up to the junior middleweight division and he would knock out Maurice Hope. Then he would get knocked out himself by Matthew Helton. And unfortunately today, he's being home cared by his mom due to brain injuries. He was in there too long. Salute to Wilfred Benitez. He was an outstanding fighter. One of the greatest in boxing history. This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs History. Thanks for hanging in there with me. This has been fun. These are some gladiators that I'll always remember. Salute to my subscribers. Peace.